Some stories begin with hope. This one began with Heartbreaker. Heartbreak so sharp it echoed through the halls of the animal hospital and left everyone who heard it changed forever. It was a cold gray morning in the city. The rain tapped a steady rhythm on the windows of the Westside Animal Hospital, where the waiting room was filled with anxious faces and the low hum of whispered prayers. In the back, in a small, sterile exam room, Officer Daniel Brooks stood with his hands clenched, his uniform still damp from the storm outside. On the table lay Coda, his canine partner, a German shepherd with a heart as big as the city he served. Coda's breathing was shallow, his eyes glazed with pain. The night before, he had saved Daniel's life, lunging between his handler and a fleeing suspect with a knife. The wound was deep, the blood loss severe. Daniel had carried him into the hospital, refusing to let anyone else touch him. Now, the Vedekine woman named Dr. Patel stood at the foot of the table, her face drawn with exhaustion and sorrow. She had done everything she could. Surgery, transfusions, hours of careful monitoring. But Coda's pulse was weak, his gums pale, and his body cold. Dr. Patel shook her head, her voice gentle but firm. "I'm so sorry, Officer Brooks. We've done all we can. It's time to let him go." Daniel's world narrowed to a single point, the rise and fall of Coda's chest, the memory of every mission, every moment they'd shared. He remembered the first day they met, the way Coda had chosen him, the way they'd learned to trust each other with their lives. He remembered the laughter, the long nights on patrol, the way Coda always seemed to know when Daniel needed him most. He looked at Dr. Patel, his voice raw. "No, not yet. He's a fighter. He's not done." Dr. Patel's eyes filled with sympathy. "Daniel, I know how much he means to you, but sometimes the kindest thing we can do is let go." Daniel shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "You don't know him. He's saved more lives than I can count. He saved mine. I owe him everything." Coda whimpered, his tail thumping weakly against the table. Dr. Patel placed a gentle hand on Daniel's shoulder. "I'll give you some time." She left the room, closing the door softly behind her. Daniel knelt beside the table, his hands trembling as he stroked Coda's fur. "Hey, buddy, I'm here. I'm not giving up on you. Not now. Not ever." He pressed his forehead to Coda's, whispering promises, memories, prayers. The world outside faded away, leaving only the bond between a man and his Dogobond, forged in courage, tested by danger, and now threatened by loss. In the hallway, nurses and techs watched through the glass, some wiping away tears. They had seen miracles before, but they had also seen too many goodbyes. But Daniel refused to say goodbye. He refused to let go, and as the rain fell harder outside, they made a vow he would fight for Coda. No matter what, he would find a way to bring him back, because sometimes the end is just the beginning. Daniel stayed by Coda's side as the minutes ticked by, the world outside the exam room fading into a blur of rain and distant sirens. He whispered stories from their years, together chasing suspects through alleyways, finding lost children in the woods, comforting victims after the worst days of their lives. Coda had always been more than a partner. It was Daniela's best friend, his family, his reason to keep going when the job felt too heavy. But now, Coda's breaths were shallow, his body limp. Daniel's heart ached with helplessness. He remembered the first time he'd met Coda at the Academy of Wild, energetic pup who'd chosen Daniel with a single, unwavering stare. They'd trained together, learned each other's signals, and built a bond that nothing had ever broken. Until now. Dr. Patel returned, her face gentle but resolute. "Daniel, I know you want to keep fighting, but Coda's body is shutting down. The wound was too deep, the blood loss too great. I'm afraid there's nothing more we can do." Daniel shook his head, his voice hoarse. "There has to be something. Another treatment, another surgery, anything." Dr. Patel sighed, her eyes full of compassion. "We could try another transfusion, but his organs are failing. I don't want him to suffer." Daniel looked at Coda, his vision blurred by tears. "He's not suffering. He's fighting. He's always been a fighter." In the waiting room, Daniel's fellow officers gathered, their faces grim. Sergeant Miller, Daniel's mentor, paced the floor. His fists clenched, He's not just a dog. He's one of us. Officer Ramirez, who had been saved by Coda during a drug bust, wiped her eyes. He's a hero. He deserves every chance. The community had rallied. Messages poured in from people. Coda had helped families reunited with missing children, victims who had found comfort in his gentle eyes, officers who owed their lives to his courage. Flowers and cards filled the hospital lobby, a testament to the lives Coda had touched. But not everyone believed in miracles. Some whispered that Daniel was being selfish, that he should let Coda go with dignity. Others worried about the cost, the strain on the hospital's resources. Dr. Patel faced pressure from her colleagues, who urged her to end Coda's suffering. But she saw the pain in Daniel's eyes, the hope that refused to die. She gave Daniel one last chance. We can try a new treatmenta. Risky one. It's experimental, and there are no guarantees. But if you want to fight, I'll fight with you. Daniel nodded hope, flickering his chest. Do it. Please. Dr. Patel called in a specialist, Dr. Chun, who had pioneered a new regenerative therapy for trauma cases. The treatment was untested on dogs, but Daniel was willing to try anything. As the team prepared, Daniel called his family. His wife, Emily, and their daughter, Sophie, rushed to the hospital, their faces pale with worry. Sophie clung to Coda, whispering, "Don't go. Boy, please don't go." Daniel hugged his family, his resolve hardening. We're not giving up. Not now. The treatment began. IVs, injections, careful monitoring. The hours dragged by, every beep of the monitor a lifeline. Outside, the rain finally stopped, but inside, the storm raged on. Daniel sat by Coda's side, holding his paw, whispering promises. You're not done, buddy. You're coming home with me. But as the night deepened, Coda's condition worsened. His breathing slowed, his heartbeat faltered. Dr. Patel shook her head, her voice breaking. I'm sorry, Daniel. I think it's time. Daniel refused to move. No. Not yet, and as the clock ticked past midnight, Daniel made a vow. He would not leave Coda's side. He would fight for him. No matter what, because sometimes hope is all you have left. The hospital was quiet. The only sounds, the soft beeping of monitors and the distant hum of the night staff. Daniel sat in the dim light, his hand wrapped around Coda's paw, his mind racing through every memory, every lesson, every moment that had brought them here. He refused to believe it was over. He refused to let go. Dr. Chun arrived just after 1 a.m. Her eyes tired, but determined. She reviewed Coda's chart, examined the wound, and listened to Daniel's pleas. I can't promise anything, she said softly, but I'll try. She explained the new therapy, a combination of stem cell injections and a heat plasma transfusion designed to jumpstart the body's healing process. It was risky, untested in a case this severe, but it was the only hope left. Daniel signed the consent forms with shaking hands. Do whatever you have to. He's family. The procedure began. Dr. Chun and Dr. Patel worked in silence, their movements precise. Daniel watched, his heart in his throat, as the team injected the stem cells, monitored Coda's vitals, and whispered encouragement. For hours, nothing changed. Coda's breathing was shallow, his heartbeat weak. Daniel's hope flickered, nearly extinguished. But then, just before dawn, a miracle happened. Coda's tail twitched. His eyes fluttered open, just for a moment, and he let out a soft whine. Daniel gasped, tears streaming down his face. Coda, buddy, can you hear me? Coda's paw moved, pressing weakly against Daniel's hand. Dr. Chun smiled, her eyes shining. He's responding. It's working. The news spread through the hospital like wildfire. Nurses and techs gathered at the door, watching in awe as Coda's breathing steadied. His heartbeat grew stronger, and color returned to his gums. Daniel's family rushed in, Sophie hugging Coda, Emily sobbing with relief. He's coming back, she whispered. He's really coming back. Dr. Patel cautioned them. He's not out of the woods yet. The next 24 hours are critical, but this is a good sign. Daniel nodded, hope blooming in his chest. He's a fighter. He always has been. The community officers stopped by to offer support, bringing treats and toys for Kota. Families who had been helped by Kota sent cards and flowers. The hospital's phones rang with messages of hope and prayers. But not everyone was convinced. Some of the staff whispered that it was a fluke, that Kota was only rallying for a moment before the end. Others worried about the cost, the resources being used for a dog when so many people needed help. Daniel ignored the doubts. He stayed by Kota's side, reading him stories, playing recordings of their favorite songs, and reminding him of all the adventures they still had to share. As the sun rose, painting the sky with hope, Kota opened his eyes and looked at Daniel. For the first time in days, he wagged his tail. Daniel laughed through his tears, hugging his partner. "You did it, buddy. You're not done yet." But as the hospital celebrated, Dr. Chun warned, "We're not finished. There could be setbacks. We have to be ready." Daniel nodded, his resolve stronger than ever. "We'll fight. Together." And as the city woke to a new day, Daniel knew that the battle for Kota's life was far from over. But for the first time, he believed they could win. The hospital staff watched in awe as Kota's condition stabilized. Word spread quickly, first among the officers who had worked with Kota, then through the community, and finally to the local news. People sent flowers, cards, and even homemade meals for Daniel and his family. The waiting room became a gathering place for those who had been touched by Kota's heroism. But as hope grew, so did the questions. Dr. Patel and Dr. Chun pored over Kota's charts, searching for an explanation. The wound had been deep, but the regenerative therapy seemed to be working faster than anyone expected. Still, Kota's blood work showed something odd, a rare marker that neither vet had seen before. Dr. Chun called a colleague at the university, a specialist in canine genetics. "We're seeing a response I can't explain. It's like his body is fighting back with everything it has." The specialist agreed to run tests, and soon a new theory emerged. Kota might have a rare genetic trait that made him more resilient to trauma. It was a long shot, but it gave everyone hope. Meanwhile, Daniel faced new challenges. Some in the department questioned the resources being spent on a dog, arguing that the hospital's time and money should go to people. Others whispered that Daniel was letting his emotions cloud his judgment. Daniel ignored the criticism. He knew what Kota meant to the community. He remembered the children Kota had found, the officers he had saved, the families he had comforted. He refused to give up, but the pressure mounted. The city's budget office called, asking for updates. The police chief visited, his tone sympathetic but firm. "We all love Kota, Dan, but you have to prepare yourself. If he doesn't make it, you need to let go." Daniel shook his head. "I can't. Not yet." Emily and Sophie visited every day, bringing Kota his favorite toys and reading him stories. Sophie drew pictures of Kota as a superhero, taping them to the walls of the exam room. One afternoon, as Daniel sat with Kota, a young boy arrived with his mother. The boy, Max, had been lost in the woods the year before, found by Kota after a 3-day search. He handed Daniel a letter. "Thank you for not giving up on him. He didn't give up on me." Daniel hugged the boy, tears in his eyes. "He's not done yet, Max. He's still fighting." But as the days passed, Kota's progress slowed. He developed a fever, his wound became inflamed, and his breathing grew labored. Dr. Patel worried about infection, and Dr. Chun feared the therapy was losing its effectiveness. Daniel refused to give in to despair. He spent every moment by Kota's side, researching new treatments, calling specialists, and praying for a miracle. One night, as Daniel dozed in the chair, he was awakened by a soft whine. Kota was awake, his eyes bright, his tail thumping weakly. Daniel smiled, hope flickering in his chest. "You're still with me, buddy?" But as he stroked Kota's fur, he noticed something strange, a small lump near the wound, hard and hot to the touch. He called Dr. Patel, who examined the lump and frowned. "This could be the source of the infection. If we can remove it, he might have a chance. But the surgery would be risky." Kota was weak, and the odds were slim. Daniel looked at his partner, his voice steady. "Do it. He's a fighter." He deserves every chance. Dr. Patel nodded, her resolve matching Daniel's. We'll do everything we can. As the surgical team prepared, Daniel hugged Kota, whispering, "Hang on, buddy. We're not done yet." The community waited, holding its breath. And as the doors to the operating room closed, Daniel knew that the next few hours would decide everything. The hospital's surgical suite was silent, except for the steady beeping of monitors and the soft voices of Dr. Patel, Dr. Chun, and their team. Daniel waited outside, pacing the hallway, his hands clenched so tightly his knuckles were white. Emily and Sophie sat nearby. Sophie clutching her father's arm, her eyes never leaving the door. Inside, Dr. Patel worked with precision, her hands steady as she opened the wound and carefully removed the infected tissue and the mysterious lump. Dr. Chun monitored Kota's vitals, her brow furrowed with concentration. The surgery took hours. Daniel's mind raced with memories. Kota leaping over fences, tracking suspects, curling up at Sophie's feet during thunderstorms. He remembered the first time Kota had saved his life, pulling him out of the path of a speeding car. He remembered the way Kota always seemed to know when Daniel was hurting, the way he would nudge Daniel's hand until he smiled again. Finally, Dr. Patel emerged, her face tired but hopeful. "We got it all. The infection was worse than we thought, but Kota's heart is strong. Now, we wait." Daniel hugged her, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you for not giving up." Emily and Sophie joined him, their relief palpable. Sophie whispered, "He's going to be okay, Daddy. I know it." The next 48 hours were critical. Kota was kept under close observation, his vitals monitored around the clock. Daniel never left his side, sleeping in a chair, holding Kota's paw, whispering stories of their adventures. The community rallied. Officers brought food and coffee, children sent drawings and letters, and the hospital staff took turns sitting with Daniel, offering words of encouragement. But the fight was far from over. Kota's fever spiked, his breathing grew ragged, and for a moment, it seemed as if all hope was lost. Dr. Chun tried a new antibiotic, a last-ditch effort to fight the infection. Daniel prayed, his voice breaking, "Please, buddy, don't leave me. Not yet." And then, slowly, Kota began to improve. His fever broke, his breathing steadied, and his eyes opened, bright and clear. Daniel wept with relief, hugging his partner. "You did it, Kota. You did it." Dr. Patel smiled, her eyes shining. "He's not out of the woods yet, but he's fighting. He's got a chance." The news spread quickly. The community celebrated. The hospital staff cheered, and Daniel's family hugged each other, grateful for the miracle they had witnessed. But as Kota began to recover, a new challenge loomed. The infection had damaged his leg, and there was a chance he would never walk or work again. Daniel faced a difficult decision. Should he push Kota to recover fully, risking further injury, or should he let his partner retire, giving him the peaceful life he deserved? He turned to Dr. Patel and Dr. Chun for advice. They agreed that Kota's spirit was strong, but his body needed time to heal. "Let him rest," Dr. Patel said. "Let him be a dog for a while." Daniel nodded, his heart heavy but hopeful. "Whatever he needs, I'll do it." As Kota slept, Daniel sat by his side, thinking of all they had been through. He knew the road ahead would be long and difficult, but he also knew that they would face it together. And as the sun rose over the city, Daniel made a promise to Kota, to his family, and to himself. "We're not done yet, buddy. We're just getting started." The days that followed were a test of patience and faith. Kota's recovery was slow, each small victory shadowed by setbacks. So many mornings, he would lift his head and wag his tail, his eyes bright with hope. Other days, he barely moved, his body racked with pain and exhaustion. Daniel stayed by his side, refusing to leave the hospital except for quick showers and meals. Emily and Sophie visited every day, bringing Kota his favorite toys and reading him stories. The hospital staff grew used to the sight of the officer and his family camped out in the waiting room, their hope unwavering even as the odds seemed to stack against them. But the strain was taking its toll. Daniel's face grew gaunt, his eyes ringed with fatigue. He snapped at nurses, argued with Dr. Patel, and spent long hours staring out the window, wrestling with guilt and fear. He blamed himself for Koda's pain, for pushing him too hard, for not protecting him better. One night, as a storm raged outside, Koda's condition worsened. His breathing became labored, his temperature spiked, and his heart rate faltered. Dr. Patel and Dr. Chun rushed to his side, working through the night to stabilize him. Daniel broke down, sobbing in the hallway. "You can't either?" Daniel nodded, wiping his eyes. I can't lose him. He's saved me so many times. I don't know who I am without him." Emily squeezed his hand. "You're his hero, Dad. He needs you to believe." Inside the exam room, Sophie sat with Koda, her small hand resting on his paw. She whispered, "Don't go, Koda. We need you. Daddy needs you." The community rallied once more. Officers took over Daniel's shifts, neighbors brought meals, and the hospital staff organized a blood drive for Koda and other animals in need. The waiting room filled with cards, flowers, and photos of Koda with the people he had helped. But the darkest moment came when Dr. Patel pulled Daniel aside. "He's fighting, but his body is tired. We're doing everything we can, but you need to prepare yourself. Sometimes love means letting go." Daniel shook his head, his voice hoarse. "Not yet, please, not yet." That night, Daniel sat by Koda's side, holding his paw, whispering stories of their adventures. He told Koda about the first time they chased down a suspect, about the little girl they found lost in the woods, about the nights they spent watching the stars from the squad car. He promised Koda that he would never forget him, that he would honor his memory, that he would keep fighting for the animals and people who needed him. As dawn broke, Koda's breathing steadied. His eyes opened, and for a moment, he looked at Daniel with a clarity that took his breath away. Daniel smiled through his tears. "You're still here, buddy. You're still fighting." But as the sun rose, Daniel knew that the battle was far from over. There would be more setbacks, more pain, more moments when hope seemed out of reach. But he also knew that he wasn't alone. He had his family, his friends, his community, and, most of all, he had Koda. And as the city woke to a new day, Daniel made a silent vow. He would keep fighting, no matter what, because sometimes the greatest battles are fought not with strength, but with love. The storm outside faded, replaced by a gentle morning light that crept through the hospital windows. Daniel woke in his chair, stiff and sore, but with a renewed sense of hope. Koda was still alive. His breathing was steadier, his eyes brighter, and for the first time in days, he managed to lift his head and nuzzle Daniel's hand. Dr. Patel and Dr. Chun were cautiously optimistic. "He's not out of the woods," Dr. Patel warned, "but he's showing signs of improvement. The infection is receding, and his vitals are stabilizing." Daniel's heart soared. He called Emily and Sophie, who rushed to the hospital with fresh flowers and Koda's favorite squeaky toy. Sophie sat on the floor beside Koda, reading him stories and singing softly. Emily brought coffee and breakfast, her eyes shining with hope. The community's support never wavered. Officers stopped by to check on Koda, bringing treats and sharing stories of his heroism. Children sent drawings and letters, and the hospital staff decorated Koda's room with banners that read, "Get well soon, Koda." As the days passed, Koda's strength returned. He began to eat on his own, wag his tail, and even try to stand. Daniel and Dr. Patel worked with a canine physical therapist, helping Koda regain the use of his injured leg. The sessions were slow and painful, but Koda never gave up. Daniel was there for every step, encouraging his partner, celebrating every small victory. "That's it, buddy. You're doing great. I'm so proud of you." The media picked up the story, and soon, Koda became a symbol of resilience and hope. News crews filmed his therapy sessions, and people from across the country sent messages of support. But the journey was not without setbacks. Some days, Koda was too tired to move. Other days, the pain was too much, and Daniel worried that he was asking too much of his friend. Dr. Patel reassured him. "He wants to fight, Daniel. He wants to live. Trust him." Daniel nodded, his resolve hardening. "We'll get through this. Together." One afternoon, As Daniel and Koda walked slowly down the hospital hallway, a little girl approached, her eyes wide with wonder. She had lost her own dog to illness, and her parents brought her to meet Koda, hoping to lift her spirits. Koda sat patiently as the girl hugged him, her tears soaking his fur. Daniel knelt beside them, his heart full. "He's a fighter, just like you." The girl smiled, hope returning to her eyes. "If Koda can get better, maybe I can too." Daniel hugged her, grateful for the reminder that their fight was about more than just survival. It was about inspiring others, about showing that even in the darkest times, there was always a reason to hope. As the weeks passed, Koda's progress accelerated. He took his first steps outside, the sun warm on his fur, the breeze ruffling his ears. Daniel walked beside him, tears streaming down his face. "You did it, Koda. You're back." The community celebrated. The hospital staff cheered, and Daniel's family hugged each other, grateful for the miracle they had witnessed. But as Koda's strength returned, a new challenge loomed. The department wanted to retire him, to give him a peaceful life after all he had endured. Daniel understood, but he also knew that Koda still had more to give. He faced a difficult decision: let Koda retire, or fight for his right to keep working, to keep making a difference. Daniel turned to Koda, his voice gentle. "What do you want, buddy? Are you ready to rest, or do you want to keep fighting?" Koda wagged his tail, his eyes bright with determination. Daniel smiled, his heart full. "Then let's show them what we can do." And as the sun set over the city, Daniel and Koda prepared for the next chapter of their journey, one filled with hope, courage, and the unbreakable bond between a man and his dog. The debate over Koda's future swept through the department and the community. Some argued that he had earned his rest, that he should spend his days chasing tennis balls and napping in the sun. Others, inspired by his recovery, believed he still had more to give. The local news ran a poll. Should Koda retire or return to duty? The results were split, but the support for Koda was overwhelming. Daniel met with the police chief, Dr. Patel, and Dr. Chun to discuss Koda's future. The chief was sympathetic, but cautious. "He's a hero, Dunn, but we can't risk his health. If he comes back, it has to be his choice and yours." Dr. Patel agreed. "He's strong, but he's not invincible. If you push him too hard, he could relapse." Daniel looked at Koda, who sat at his feet, his eyes bright and eager. "He'll tell me when he's ready. He always does." The decision was made. Koda would undergo a series of tests and evaluations. If he passed, he could return to light-duty school visits, therapy work, and community events. No more high-risk chases, no more dangerous calls. Koda aced every test. It was slower, a little stiffer, but his spirit was undiminished. The department threw a welcome-back party. The mayor presented him with a medal, and children lined up to hug their hero. But the true test came one afternoon, when a call came in about a missing child. The girl, only 6 years old, had wandered away from her backyard and disappeared into the woods. The search teams fanned out, but the hours ticked by with no sign of her. Daniel and Koda joined the search, the old routine coming back like muscle memory. Koda sniffed the girl's blanket, then took off into the trees, Daniel close behind. For hours, they searched through mud, brambles, and fading light. Daniel's heart pounded with fear, but Koda never wavered. He barked, then darted into a thicket. Daniel followed, his breath catching as he saw the little girl, cold and scared but alive, curled up beneath a fallen log. Koda licked her face, wagging his tail. Daniel scooped her up, wrapping her in his jacket. The search team cheered as they emerged from the woods. The girl safe in Daniel's arms, Koda at his side. The city erupted in celebration. The story made national news. Hero dog saves child after near-death recovery. Letters poured in from across the country, and Koda became a symbol of hope, resilience, and the power of never giving up. Daniel wept with joy, hugging Koda and Sophie, who ran to meet them at the hospital. "You did it, buddy. You saved her." "You saved us all." Dr. Patel and Dr. Chun hugged Daniel, their pride and relief clear. "He's a miracle," Dr. Patel whispered. "You both are." The community held a parade in Koda's honor. The mayor gave a speech. The police chief pinned another medal to Koda's collar, and Daniel's family rode in the lead car, waving to the cheering crowd. But for Daniel, the real reward was the look in Koda's eyes of trust, the love, the unbreakable bond that had carried them through the darkest days. As the sun set on the city, Daniel knelt beside Koda, his voice full of gratitude. "We did it, buddy. We proved him wrong." Koda wagged his tail, his eyes shining with pride. But as the city celebrated, Daniel knew that their journey wasn't over. There would be more challenges, more rescues, more lives to touch. And as he looked at Koda, Daniel made a silent promise. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." The weeks following Koda's triumphant return to duty were filled with a new kind of energy. The city, once divided over whether a dog deserved so much attention, now rallied around him. The story of his recovery and the little girl he'd saved became a symbol of hope for everyone who'd ever felt lost or doubted. Daniel and Koda were invited to schools, community centers, and even City Hall. Children drew pictures of Koda. Parents thanked Daniel for his courage, and the police department received hundreds of letters from people inspired by their story. The local news ran a special segment, Koda, the Comeback K9, and donations poured in for the animal hospital and the K9 unit. Dr. Patel and Dr. Chun were recognized for their innovation and compassion. The hospital received funding for new equipment, and Dr. Chun began training other vets in the regenerative therapy that had saved Koda's life. The waiting room was filled with grateful pet owners, many of whom had once doubted that miracles were possible. Emily and Sophie thrived, their family stronger than ever. Sophie started a Koda club at Air School, teaching her classmates about kindness, courage, and the importance of never giving up. Emily volunteered at the animal hospital, helping other families through their own crises. But not everything was easy. Daniel still struggled with guilt and fear, haunted by the thought of what might have happened if he had given up. He attended counseling, encouraged by Emily and Dr. Patel, and slowly learned to forgive himself. Koda, too, had scars, some visible, some hidden. He tired more easily, and Daniel was careful not to push him too hard. But the dog's spirit was undiminished. He greeted every day with enthusiasm, every challenge with determination, and every person with love. The community changed, too. The neighborhood watch grew stronger, and people looked out for each other in ways they never had before. The city council passed new laws to protect service animals, and the police department expanded its canine unit, inspired by Koda's example. One evening, as Daniel and Koda walked through the park, they were stopped by a woman with a small dog. She hugged Daniel, tears in her eyes. "You gave me hope. When my dog got sick, I remembered your story. I didn't give up, and now he's better." Daniel smiled, his heart full. "That's what Koda taught me. Never give up." But the story wasn't quite over. One night, Daniel received a call from Dr. Patel. A new case had come in, a dog hit by a car, its injuries severe. The family was devastated, the prognosis grim. Daniel and Koda rushed to the hospital, offering comfort and support. They sat with the family, sharing their story, their hope, their belief in miracles. The dog survived, and the family became lifelong friends. As Daniel and Koda walked home that night, Daniel looked at his partner, gratitude and pride in his eyes. "We're not just saving lives, buddy, we're changing them." Koda wagged his tail, his eyes shining with love, and as the city lights twinkled in the distance, Daniel knew that their journey was far from over. There would be more challenges, more rescues, more lives to touch. But whatever came next, they would face it together. The city's faith in Koda and Daniel was unshakable. But fate had one more challenge in store, a test that would push them both to their limits. It began on a quiet Sunday morning. Daniel and Koda were enjoying a rare day off, walking along the riverbank as the sun rose. The city was peaceful, the air crisp and clean. For a moment, Daniel allowed himself to believe that the worst was behind them. Then his phone rang. It was Sergeant Miller, his voice urgent. "There's been a building collapse downtown. Search and rescue teams are on site, but they need canine support. Can you and Koda help?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "We're on our way." At the scene, chaos reigned. A gas explosion had leveled an apartment building, trapping people beneath the roof. Firefighters, medics, and police swarmed the site, their faces grim. Daniel knelt beside Koda, looking into his partner's eyes. "You ready, buddy?" Koda barked, his tail wagging. his body tense with anticipation. They joined the search teams, Kota sniffing through the debris, his nose leading him to pockets of air where survivors might be trapped. Daniel followed, calling out to the victims, encouraging them to hold on. Hours passed. Kota found 3 people alive, barking and digging until the rescue teams could reach them. The crowd cheered, hope renewed with every life saved. But then, disaster struck. A section of the Rubel shifted, trapping Daniel and Kota in a narrow space. Dust filled the air, and for a moment, Daniel couldn't breathe. He cried out, his voice muffled. "Kota, stay with me." Kota crawled to Daniel's side, pressing close, his body a shield against the falling debris. Daniel's mind raced with memories of the night Kota was wounded, of the promise he'd made to never give up. He whispered, "We're not done yet, buddy. We're getting out of here." Above ground, the rescue teams worked frantically to free them. Emily and Sophie arrived, their faces pale with fear. Dr. Patel and Dr. Chun joined the effort, offering support and comfort. Inside the rubble, Daniel and Kota waited. Daniel sang softly, his voice trembling but steady. Kota licked his face, his eyes full of trust. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the rescuers broke through. Daniel and Kota emerged, covered in dust but alive. The crowd erupted in cheers, tears streaming down their faces. Emily and Sophie hugged Daniel. Dr. Patel knelt beside Kota, and the city celebrated another miracle. But the ordeal had taken its toll. Kota was exhausted, his body battered. Daniel was shaken, his hands trembling as he held his partner. Dr. Patel examined Kota, her voice gentle. "He's going to need rest. A lot of Italiano. No more rescues for a while." Daniel nodded, his heart heavy, but grateful. He's earned it. The city honored Daniel and Kota with a ceremony at City Hall. The mayor gave a speech, the police chief pinned another medal to Kota's collar, and the community celebrated the heroes who had never given up. But as the applause faded, Daniel knew that the real victory was not in the medals or the headlines, but in the lives they had touched, the hope they had inspired, and the bond they had forged. And as he knelt beside Kota, Daniel whispered, "We did it, buddy. We passed the final test." Kota wagged his tail, his eyes shining with love. But as the sun set over the city, Daniel knew that their story wasn't quite over. There was still one more chapter to read, a chapter of healing, forgiveness, and new beginnings. The weeks after the rescue brought a gentle, lasting peace to Daniel, Kota, and the city they served. The story of the officer who refused to give up hand, the dog who defied every odd became a legend, told in schools, at kitchen tables, and in the quiet moments when hope seemed hard to find. Kota's recovery was slow but steady. He spent his days lounging in the sun, chasing tennis balls with Sophie, and visiting the hospital where he had become a symbol of resilience. Dr. Patel and Dr. Chun checked on him often, their pride in his recovery matched only by their gratitude for the lessons he had taught them. Daniel found a new sense of purpose. He continued to work with the police department, but now focused on training new K9 teams, sharing the story of Kota's courage and the power of never giving up. He spoke at community events, urging people to fight for what they loved, to believe in miracles, and to stand by those who needed them most. Emily and Sophie thrived, their family stronger than ever. Sophie's Kota Club grew, inspiring children across the city to be kind, brave, and compassionate. Emily volunteered at the animal hospital, helping other families through their own crises. The city changed. The neighborhood watch became a model for other communities, and the police department expanded its K9 unit. Inspired by Kota's example, the city council passed new laws to protect service animals, and the mayor declared an annual Kota Day to honor the heroes both human and canine who made the city a better place. But the greatest change was in Daniel himself. He learned to forgive himself for the times he had doubted, to accept help when he needed it, and to cherish every moment with those he loved. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Daniel sat on the porch with Kota at his feet, Emily and Sophie beside him. He watched the sky turn gold and pink, listened to the laughter of his family, and felt a peace he had never known before. He scratched Kota's ears, his voice full of gratitude. "We did it, buddy. We proved them wrong. We never gave up." Koda wagged his tail, his eyes shining with love. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to give up. Sometimes the strongest heroes walk on 4 legs. And sometimes the world changes not with a miracle, but with the love and loyalty of a friend who refuses to let go. Because in the end, hope is the greatest gift we can give and the greatest legacy we can leave behind.